Hello, so to begin today's fifth grade worksheets, we're going to be starting off with subtraction. And with today's worksheets, there are going to be two scenarios of one where we just subtract and one where we add, so we will do one of each. So we will be doing 4 and 5 because obviously if you look at problems like 3 and 1, you just straight up subtract across and that's very easy. So we're going to look at a few different formats. So, number 4. This one is going to be a subtracting scenario. Number 5 will be an addition scenario. So, before we start number 4, one thing we need to notice is that the missing number has to be the smallest value between this number and this number, because we're going to be subtracting this value from 2077 to get 2069. And obviously, it cannot be bigger than both of those or we'd get negative numbers. Okay, and how you would do that is subtract 2,669 to both sides, and you would get 17 minus 9 is 8, and then 0, 1, and so you get 108. And you would subtract because you need to, obviously, main point is to get the smaller number. However, if you were to do anything with 177 to the other side, yes, you would be isolating the number, but you would have to go through a lot more steps. So yes, you could subtract this big number to this to get a negative number, and then you would divide by the negative, but that's too much work. So simple, straightforward, you just subtract this smaller number with bigger number to get the smallest number. However, let's look at number 5. Now we have to get the little minus here involved. And basically, before we start again, we need to realize that this number has to be the biggest value out of these two. So it has to be bigger than both of these, because obviously if this was smaller than any of these, we'd get negative numbers, which is not what we want. And how you would do that, you want to isolate this. So this one is a problem where you need to isolate it. Or, yes. And so how you would do that, opposite of minus is addition. You'd add 684 to both sides. And then you'd get 8,761. And that is your new answer. And just imagine this being crossed off, so this is left alone. And then we figured it out, if you were confused about the isolation part. Next, we're going to be doing decimals. So find the product or sum. And once again, when it comes to subtracting and adding decimals, you cannot add or get rid of any decimal places. It has to be whatever there is. But however, let's look at problem 3. We see that there are 3 places and this has only 2. However, we could add a 0 here so that it becomes 3. Now, this is not adding a decimal place. This is just adding an extra value per se so that it lines up. Because if it doesn't align, it's going to be confusing. So what I mean is plus, and then if we didn't do the 0, we'd have to go with this. But there's a missing number here, and we don't you might get confused on what to do with the 2. And you do have to add. And since 0 is basically no value whatsoever, you do 0. You replace 0, and you just need to add now. So 2, 12, and you get a new answer of 0.622. Next, we're going to be doing measurement. So there is converted measurements given to us. And really quickly, we're going to be doing each of one scenario. So the first scenario is a big value to small measurement. And when it comes to this, you most likely have to multiply, or you will multiply. However, when it goes to small to big, the easiest way is to divide. There may be some cases of multiplications, however, that's for more complicated ones. So let's look at number 1, for example. So this is a big to small. And obviously we see that because whatever values that go further into the left are bigger and the right is smaller. So 1 yard is 3 feet. And we need to figure what the foot is, and it's going to be a much bigger number considering it's smaller and there's more amounts. So how would you do that? Since we know it's 3 feet, you just need to do 4 times 3, and 4 yards is 12 feet. However, for cases like number 5, so let's do feet and yard again, we know 1 yard equals to 3 feet. And like I said, small to big, you're going to divide because bigger values or bigger measurements have less numbers. So you would do 40 divided by 3. And this is more of a remainder kind of thing. So let's write it out this way. So you get 1, obviously, because 3 goes into 4 times 1 time. And you bring that down. 3 goes into 10 3 times, and then 3 times 3 is 9. And you get 1 left. And this is going to be a remainder foot. So you get 13 yards and 1 foot. And lastly, we will be doing multiplying decimals. So multiplying decimals, very easy. However, today's is a little bit more with bigger zeros, more zeros. So when you multiply decimals, so let's look at number 7, for example. So we see that there are 3 zeros. We can ignore the 1 because, it's kind of basically saying 1 times 1. So you really want to focus on how many zeros there are. And when there is zeros, not thousands, but hundreds, tens, hundreds, not tenths, you're going to be moving decimal places to the right. If this comma were a dot, then we would go to the left. But however, we don't need to worry about that. So, and it's multiplying by 91. And we see a decimal here. And we see that there's 3 zeros. So we're going to be moving this 91 decimal. How many times? 3 times to the right. So 1, 2, 3. And you replace them with zeros. You're basically replacing it over here. And you get a new answer of 91,000. And let's do one easy one.